Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, the School of Love. My name is Maria and I am helping people discover the inner potential for love towards oneself and towards the others. From the very beginning, I must emphasize the fact that this channel is not part of my educational and research activities at Hiroshima University. It is nonetheless part of my privilege, joy, and sense of duty to propagate and implement knowledge, information, as well as motivation and inspiration outside the limited framework of academic endeavors. With that being said, let's dive right into today's topic, which is healthy self-esteem. So what is healthy self-esteem? Healthy self-esteem is the ability of every individual to understand, to perceive and to understand one's position within the world, and then to evaluate one's abilities, one's propensities, one's proclivities, one's potentialities, and one's probable trajectory into the world. In today's video, I'm going to address 5 topics, which is a definition of self-esteem, as I have just done. Then I will delve into a sort of etymological development of self-esteem as emerging from the Latin word of estimare, which has led to 2 words or 2 concepts in modern English or in the modern world, which is self-estimation and self-evaluation and self-respect. And then I shall talk about what is healthy self-esteem in comparison to unhealthy self-esteem. And in the final step, I shall talk a little bit, I shall delve into the relationship between healthy self-esteem and our relationship to those around us. If you are new to the channel, at this moment I would like to ask you to please consider subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting. Thank you very, very much. This helps us not only with the mysterious algorithm which seems to dominate the YouTube galaxy, but also with contributing to the expansion of the community of humans doing their best to impact positively the world and those around them by discovering their authentic selves and living life wholeheartedly. Thanks again. So, as I said, self-esteem is this ability of an individual, at best of any individual, to understand and conceptualize and control to a certain degree one's position in the world and to evaluate one's abilities and one's potential development, one's potential trajectory in the world and in one's particular life. And self-esteem has evolved from the Latin word estimare, which refers to actually 2 elements. So self-esteem as self-estimation or self-evaluation, respectively self-esteem as self-respect. Firstly, I'll talk about self-esteem as self-estimation or self-evaluation, and this refers to the ability of the individual to understand oneself on various levels, but for the sake of the simplicity of the discussion, there are 2 major levels: the physical one and the non-physical one. The physical dimension of oneself is the body. And this evaluation or estimation of one's physical abilities or one's physical body refers to the ability to know how fast can I run, for instance, what are my sleep needs, for instance, or how strongly am I of the athletic sort or not, how much food do I need, what kind of food do I need, how much, how do I relax, so on a physical dimension. Do I prefer to read a book, or do I prefer to watch a movie, or do I prefer to spend time with my friends, or do I prefer to do something for my further, to deepen my further education? And with this, I have already touched into the second dimension of one's second dimension of the human entity, so to say, which is the non-physical one. There are various ways to refer to this non-physical one. So we have emotions, so emotional side, intellectual side, spiritual side, mental side, intellectual side. So there are various, but the non-physical side refers to everything that is not directly related to our biology. For instance, what kind of books do I prefer to read? Do I prefer to read books in the first place, or do I prefer a movie, or do I prefer going to a live event like a theater, or a concert, a concert of classical music, or a concert of a rock band, or a concert of a teen singer, or a rap song, a rap music concert? Or do I prefer to spend time with my friends? Do I prefer to spend time with my friends over a coffee, or with one specific friend, so one-to-one, or over coffee, or over dinner, or over lunch? When do I feel more comfortable interacting with people? What kind of work do I like? Do I like working in an open space kind of office, or do I prefer my own space with a closed door and windows? I'm that type. Do I prefer to be flexible in organizing my schedule, or do I prefer someone else to tell me what to do with my schedule? So all these dimensions are very important for understanding who we are, and this is what refers when I talk about self-esteem as self-estimation or self-evaluation. To get to know oneself, both as a biological entity and as non-biological, as intellectual, emotional, spiritual, mental entity. So if done, well, there is not, if done correctly, I would have almost said, but it's not so much about doing this procedure or of self-evaluation, doing it constantly, and there is no right or wrong. What matters is actually that we do it, so the process itself, and that we reach some milestones in which we understand some elements of our own selves. And of course, because we live such long lives, ourselves, or ourself, my own self, ourselves, they change over time. And who am I? I used to be in my teen years. I evolved. I changed into being someone else when I was in my 20s, 30s, and now in 40s, and hopefully I will change into someone better, someone more complex in my 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on, until, well, I will have to leave this beautiful world. But what's important is to have these processes of thinking about oneself regularly, and to look for answers, look for solutions, look for ways to understand oneself at that particular moment in time and under those particular life circumstances. It's not so much about checking a box on our daily to-do lists. It's more about moving forward in life. Now, the second aspect of self-esteem is self-respect. This is a little bit more complicated or trickier, because this involves taking care of ourselves without turning into self-centered, and while taking into account the fact that, well, I am not the center of the world, yes, and the others matter as well. So it's about taking care of oneself and setting healthy boundaries. I have at least one or two, probably several videos on how to set healthy boundaries. And so I won't delve too deeply into this, but self-respect is about defining yourself, defining your own self in the particular context of your life, of your culture, of your society, of your political economic situation and visions, and as well as within your own geographical community. And because we live so long lives and we have such complex lives, such complex existential trajectories, we are also embedded in various communities. So I'm a mother to my children, I'm a partner to my partner, I am a daughter to my family, to within the context of my family of origin, I am a sister to my brother, I am I'm a colleague to my co-workers, I'm a teacher to my students, so I'm a friend to my friends. So I'm in the very particular context of my life. I belong to different social constellations. So it's very important to define myself within those very constellations without losing sight of my own core identity. This is why we need this first part, the self-estimation or the self-evaluation. So without losing my core identity, but also without losing sight of who I am in those very dynamic social cultural constellations. Yeah, so this is very important, and self-respect refers to this ability to not lose myself, to not lose oneself into the social, into the various interactions throughout my life, and to keep a sort of wholehearted authenticity and vulnerability while interacting with the others, so that I can still be accountable, held accountable to myself. So self-respect is very much about integrity. Self-respect is very much about being true to myself, authentically, vulnerably, with authentic, wholehearted vulnerability, while at the same time being open to others without allowing them to trample over me. So what is the difference between healthy self-esteem and unhealthy self-esteem? I have already very briefly mentioned it. So healthy self-esteem is to have an ongoing analysis of oneself while observing myself, and then working towards self-improvement, while at the same time accepting who I am at this very moment. So this is part of this self-evaluation process, ongoing self-evaluation process, which never ends. And on the other, this one part, and healthy self-esteem also refers to this ability to stay in one's own integrity while being flexible, so being very stable in one's own integrity, while being open and flexible when interacting with others and respecting the others, accepting the others, so not respecting but accepting the others, because in their own radical otherness, as a philosopher, Emmanuel Levinas, said some decades ago. And radical acceptance of others also leads to respect towards the others. So we do not try to change the others, but we do our best to accept them the way they are. And sometimes we don't fit, the others don't fit in our lives, or we don't fit in their lives. Sometimes we just cross hairs and we don't like each other. Then it's much better to cut off ties with the people we cannot cope with, or to keep them at a bare minimum, instead of trying to change each other. This never leads to a good outcome. In comparison to this, unhealthy self-esteem refers to not pursuing these ongoing procedures of knowing oneself and not being able to develop, to observe oneself and one's own abilities with a clear mind, with honesty, and then to try to hide oneself, hide one's weaknesses, for instance, one's negative points from oneself and from the others. This in turn will lead to we put ourselves in situations which are not suitable for our abilities, and then of course this is then a vicious circle in which we develop various maladaptive strategies to deal with the world and with our own feelings of inadaptability and inadequacy. So in relation to this, healthy or a lack of self-respect. We cannot talk about unhealthy self-respect. We can only talk about a lack of self-respect or an underdeveloped level of self-respect. So unhealthy, so a lack of a lack of self-respect refers to the fact that we are not able to live in our own integrity. We change depending on who those around us are. We do not respect their boundaries. We are not able to set healthy boundaries, and correspondingly, we might more often than not feel as if we are being taken advantage of. We develop resentment, and more often than not, this resentment leads to contempt, to disdain, and to outbursts of pure rage, which simply pushes the others away from our unhealthy way of coping with the world. So it is very important to understand that unhealthy self-esteem starts with a lack of self-reflection and self-observation and self-questioning and self-analysis, and it leads automatically, there is no way around this, leads automatically to a lack of respect towards oneself and towards the others, which then puts us in very tricky situations, which then again reinforce this unhealthy way of dealing with ourselves, and it develops then in a vicious circle of self-denial, of a sense of inadequacy, and then, of course, contempt and disdain towards the others. And with that being said, I have already touched upon the final point of this video, which refers to how our self-esteem is important for dealing with others and how it impacts our relationships with others. This is actually very simple, and I have already mentioned it. A healthy sense of self-esteem leads to healthy relationships with others. It doesn't mean we'll never have conflicts, or we'll never have misunderstandings, or we'll never have disappointments. But in general, as a general rule, it seems that when we are showing ourselves and living integrity with our true core of identity, these things tend to be smaller and to happen more seldom. And why? Because as soon as we observe that someone is not really compatible with our values, with who we are, with our way of seeing the world, we actually someone actually tends either to cut off ties, if this happens early on in an interaction, or to keep those ties at the bare minimum. If those around us develop in another direction, then we do. There is no good or bad in such constellations. It just happens that sometimes people we really care about and who were once very important in our lives, not only our families of origins, for instance, but also our classmates from kindergarten, or friends from kindergarten, or our classmates from primary school, or later on from high school and university, and we simply develop in different directions in life. And in such cases, it is actually crucial that we accept them for who they are. And well, if we are not able to cut off ties completely with them, sometimes this is really a very painful procedure, a very painful decision and then process. But at least to keep those relationships at the minimum, on a slow burn, so that they do not impact and influence our lives too strongly and therefore too negatively. So that would be for today. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to welcome you back here again very soon. Love and peace to you all.